lose his temper and basically beat my grandmother. The kids would surround her and protect her. And at that time too, my mom and my sister were the two girls, and he told both of them that they were worthless because they were girls. And he attempted to actually give them both away, which was a pretty common custom back then. And one of the things that my mom did was, because she was the older sister, she was number 2 in the family, is that my grandfather actually found a couple to take his youngest daughter. And my mom and grandmother hid her in a closet when the couple came. And so they weren't allowed. They weren't able to take my mom's younger sister. And that's kind of an example of who she was she was always looking out for people. And growing up on a farm, my grandmother, my mom, and presumably the younger sister would cook the meals for all the farm hands before they went off into the fields. And my grandfather would also, I understand, deliver the livestock on the farm, which some of my cousins here, their father ended up becoming an OBGYN, but then became a pediatrician, and then after he retired, he delivered the livestock on his farm in Florida, and it all comes around. But as part of tradition, the women would cook all the food for the farm hands, and then after the farm hands were all finished eating, the women would then eat the leftovers. So this is how she grew up. And I remember the first time I went back to Taiwan and visited Zhanghua. As a spoiled American, it was a bit shocking because there were no running toilets. They were just pots that you would empty out at the end of the day. And then when they got their first toilet in the village, it was a big celebratory event. That and their first telephone, there was one telephone, and Sonny, you remember this? There was one telephone and one flushing toilet in the village, and that was a huge deal for the village. And if I can share this story, one time I went back with my mom, and she, this is at the point she had come to America, had us, and she was a village girl by her background, and I was walking with her, and she took me into somebody's house, and I don't remember the details, but she's like, "Oh, this is Auntie. This was one of my favorite neighbors." And I was standing in the house, and it was a 3-room house with a dirt floor. Like, it was a dirt floor, and I was looking at the house, and I was like, I don't understand. There was like room we were in, and there were 2 rooms, and I was like, "Mom, what are the other rooms?" And she was like, "Oh, those are the 2 rooms for the 2 wives." And I was like, "Oh," and she's like, "Yeah, my favorite auntie had the room closest to the kitchen, so she was the favorite wife." So this is how she grew up, right? She was a rebel though, and my grandfather did not want her to go past junior high, so she did well in school, and she went to high school, which my grandfather did not want her to do. He probably just wanted to marry her off or something. So she went to high school, she excelled in high school, and she went to nursing college, and she excelled in nursing college, and then she told my grandfather, "I want to go to America." And he said, "Well, I don't want to give you money for it." And so she said, "Well, give me my dowry for the airfare, and you don't have to owe me money ever again." And so that's what he did. He gave her her dowry, which he used to pay for her airfare, and then true to my mom, when she came to America and made money, she mailed money back to my grandfather. In America, she went from Texas to the Bay Area, where she met my father through one of her best friends at the time, my aunt Sue here. And another story I'd like to share about my mom is that before she met my dad, if you haven't heard this story before, she said she was chased by another Taiwanese graduate student that she considered, but she ultimately decided to choose my dad, and it was because that person had political aspirations. And she decided that it wasn't a stable life, and she made the right decision because apparently he ended up in jail for his political activities. It was martial law at the time in Taiwan, and he was an anti-KMT activist, so when he went back to Taiwan, he got jailed. So that was part of her dating history before she met my dad. And one of my favorite stories is when they got married, they went to Vegas, and that's where he laughing. She knows the story. They went to Vegas and they got on a hot streak playing roulette. Black and white, Dad, or even odd? Black and red? Both. Why not? Black and red.
Living it up.
Single numbers. I think it was just 50 odds, and they were on a run. And how long was the run for, Dad? How long did you win for? 1 night? 2 nights? Couple hours? Okay, I think 1 or 2 nights sounds better. So they were on a run for a couple hours, and they thought they were doing well, and they lost all their money. And you didn't have money for the hotel that night, right?
No, I had check.
Oh, you had your checkbook, but you didn't have any cash. No Apple Pay back then. So my understanding is you drove back. Is this Lake Town or Las Vegas? Halfway they got tired, so they pulled over and they slept in the car. That was their honeymoon. So my mom's career, after they got married, they had both my sister and me. We're both named after the cities that they immigrated to. In San Francisco, that's why I'm named Francis. I was named after the city I was born in. My middle name Davis is where my dad was going to school, UC Davis, and Eddie's middle name is Davina, which is the feminine version of Davis. So they wanted to document, I think, it was very Asian too. And one of their friends, their son's name is California. We call him Cal. It's a very Taiwanese, Chinese thing to do. The only other Francis I've met are all Chinese too. But my mom ended up working as a labor and delivery nurse, and also as a midwife. She would go to people's homes and deliver their babies in their homes. And then my dad got a postdoc at the University of Iowa, and so they moved to Iowa. And for those who know, my mom was very independent. Evie and I were driving her absolutely nuts, I guess, because we were just a couple years old. So she said we were driving her so nuts, she decided to apply to the PhD nursing program to get out of the house. That was the reason she applied to the PhD program. And she did. She didn't finish because she realized that was the reason that she applied, was to get out of the house, not to actually do the PhD. And then I teaching nursing at Mount Mercy College as a nurse professor. And interestingly, when they asked her, she had a master's in it was a Catholic nursing school, and they asked her, what was your master's in? And she said basically birth control. So birth control. Reproductive health and birth control, which was contrary to their philosophy as a Catholic school, but they still hired her.
Yeah. Well, they said teach that for nursing purposes.
Did they?
Yes, that's why they had to hire her.
Thank
Yes,
you.
they just wanted to teach.
So we grew up in Iowa, and then my mom, being the restless person she is, had her summers off, so she became a realtor during the summers and quickly became a very successful realtor. And after how many years in Iowa City? 10 years in Iowa City, they decided they had enough of the winters. And really, I didn't appreciate it at the time, but I'm sure most of you can appreciate this now. Imagine picking up mid-career, early career, leaving academia and deciding we're going to move to California and start a small business. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. So that's what they did. They left academia, they moved to California, they bought a florist, because my dad is a botanist. They did well. They bought a second florist. My dad opened a 1-hour photo. My mom continued to do real estate. And I'll never forget when she said, I never in my life would have imagined I would have gone from living on a farm to living in California with a swimming pool in the backyard. So these are the stories I heard growing up and never really thought a lot about them until now. think she carried the spirit of her mother and her grandmother, and really just trying to show people love, to show the family and the people here. Or one of the things that sometimes drove us nuts is she would bring friends over the house who were weird people, honestly. They're like, Mom, why did you bring these? Why did they come over dinner? Well, they needed help. And that, I think that's partly why I became a psychiatrist. I grew up seeing all these interesting people coming into our house, and my mom constantly trying to help these people who definitely needed help. So that was something I think that I certainly appreciate and miss about her, is how much she really just cared about people. I wanted to always also, I think she finally is at peace. The one thing that she always wanted to do in her life, she always felt like she needed to do for herself, because her father told her that she wasn't the person who was a girl. So I'm going to have my dad speak and Libby speak, and then afterwards, completely optional, people are welcome and encouraged to share some thoughts with us as well. Hey, Dad, you ready? It's your turn. I'll stand behind you.
Thank everybody to come over here to say goodbye to my mom, my wife. And I'll make it brief. I think everybody about Grace. You have some communication with her. She loves everybody. She's outgoing. And I met Grace when he was 25 and I was 30 through my sister, was a classmate, and she has a lot of choice. And, at the age 29, I told her that if she don't get married, she becomes an old maid.
That was the winning line.
That worked.
Decided to take me with her and start off 60 years of marriage. And we go through open communication so that we come to agreement with idea about the life, idea about the world, idea about money, come to some certain amount of agreement so we can stay married for so long. And at the end of her life, she kept telling me that she will marry me again the next life. So finally we decided to find a place that we can stay together after I die in the spot. So today everybody can witness our second life marriage.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you, Dad. Yeah. So, thank you, Francis. Thank you, Dad. Thank you all for being here today. I wanted to use my mom's name, Grace, and use it as an acronym for a lot of the qualities she has. First of all, my understanding is that when she came to America, and she said what her name was, whoever the immigration officer was writing her name said, okay, we're going to call you Grace. They didn't want to write down Wang Qiu. And so we looked up what grace means in Latin, and it means favor, kindness, or mercy. It can also refer to elegance, beauty, or charm, both physically and in one's character. And I think she had embodied this name. So for G, I feel like my Mother Grace was very gracious, generous with those she loved, and extremely gifted and talented. in so many things. She was so smart, so ambitious, so gifted in her skills with money, with flowers, with art, with her ability to talk to people and give so much compassion to them. She was resolute. She was reliable to those she loved and well respected in business and in family. She was authentic, adventurous. She's always willing to try something new and extremely ambitious. To see her come from Taiwan, from a poor village, she claimed that she was the first female to go leave the village to get an education. So in a way, she's a pioneer. And her adventurous spirit, be willing to go alone, come to America, start out in Houston, and then eventually follow her classmate like that to San Francisco, and then to hear the adventures that she's went on with all the different men she's dated, to other things like I don't know if I remember this correctly, but when you were going to date your husband, I think my mother was curious about this fire alarm thing. And so she decided to pull it, right? And so he was suddenly waking up. Do you want to tell that story?
I would tell that
You'll tell the story? Okay, all right. So she would get into a lot of mischief, let's put it that way. I just want to say that she had a lot of adventures and a lot of funny stories to tell. She was very compassionate. I think that's where my brother and I get from having a lot of strange friends, and also some of us being in a profession where we deal with people who are struggling with whatever issues they have, whether it be mental, physical, sometimes both. But that we find it interesting. It's just like a puzzle to decipher and kind of like unravel, and then also to help heal. And I think that's why we're in the healing or helping professions in some ways. She was confident, she was classy, and she was very much cherished. And then lastly, she can be elegant, earnest, very well educated, and she was very effective in whatever she was doing. She was so effective, I think that's why a lot of us kept coming back, or kept wanting to talk to her, because it was like she had you tell her all these things and she'll be like spot on. She would nail it. She's like, I think it's this. And she was so forthright in that and so real about it that it just had us keep coming back. I wanted to get her feedback and her advice on anything, because she would do it with grace and humor. And I think that's why I love her so much and I miss her. And I really hope that I could carry those qualities forward in my interactions with you. I mean, the last thing that, before she died, all she was worried about was food, feeding us. Back to the role in the family where she was raised in. The woman who had the hot top position nearest to the kitchen. And so for her, it was like when you came into the house, it was like, have you eaten yet? If you haven't eaten yet, okay, we're going to eat. She'll either make something or we'll go out to eat. And it was always, her focus was always on good food and good relations. So thank you all for being here. I hope we can continue that tradition. And I really miss Mom. I do want to tack on one extra funny story. My brother and I were recollecting when we were for Mother's Day. Actually, not Mother's Day. The week after she had passed away, we went to eat at a restaurant in the center, which has totally been transformed from the time that when we first came to California. And my brother and I were recollecting, like, this used to be someplace that we come to. What was it? And then we realized that we used to go to the center for movies. And the one movie that I thought was funny as heck was Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. And my brother and I, we were underage. So she said, so when she went to drop us off, they wouldn't sell us the tickets.
They wouldn't sell us the tickets.
They would sell us the tickets.
You were 14.
Well, he was 14, I was 15. And so then we had to go back to the car because she's waiting on the curb. And we're like, Mom, you have to buy the tickets. And she goes, why? Because it's a
rated R.
It's a rated R movie. And then so she goes, okay, I'm fine. So she pulls in, she goes up, and she goes, okay, I'll buy the tickets for them. And then they looked at her. And she goes, what, I have to buy a ticket too? She goes, yeah, because you're the adult. So then she ended up, I think she went to the payphone. Back then we had payphones, not cell phones. She went to the payphone, called wherever she was, I think Florist, she was banned. She called the employee, asked him to stay an extra 2 hours so that she could watch this movie with us.
Aww.
So I want to say that.
Which was not an appropriate movie.
I don't know. It's the
I
meaning
enjoyed it.
It's the meaning of life. Come on now. And and I think she found it hilarious, especially the section about the Catholics fighting Protestants and that one song. Was it Every Sperm is Sacred? But anyways, that's another story to tell. But what I'm saying is that she always was able to go with the flow.
Yeah.
And she handled it with humor and grace. And I love her for that. And I hope you all have similar stories to share about my mother. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Ed.
My name is Sue, and I'm a Grace. I know Grace almost more than 60 years. We went to the college together in Taiwan and at San Francisco, San Francisco State College. And she's a very smart student. She's very intelligent, and she's a good nurse. She treated the patients really, tenderly, kindly, and everybody loved her. Well, she also is a very good cooker. Before she came to United States, she went to the cooking class, so she knows how to cook a lot of delicious Taiwanese dishes. And I learned a lot from her. And she also become my sister-in-law. So we have a really close relationship with the United States. And I think, she is the fantastic mother toward the family, everything. She did a really good job. And she also is a good instructor, in the college. And the student in Taiwan and in the United States, everybody, the students really close to her. That I know. And I think she also is a good, business woman. She did the flower shop, she did the one-hour photo, and she did the, real estate. Career is really successful. And we really miss her. And I will follow the story about if you want to tell you that story. I came to the United States, in San Francisco earlier. Then she went to Texas, and then she came to San Francisco, and we attended the San Francisco College together. So she came here. She came to San Francisco in 1965, and I was already in the San Francisco. So I arranged her to stay in the Chinese district hotel. And at that time, right now my husband, that time my boyfriend was coming from Taiwan on the way to Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin. So I arranged them both them stay in the one hotel, the same hotel in Chinatown. And my Jim is, probably is jet lag, so he sleeps so well. So Grace want to knock the door, to ask him they are going to go to eat, and knock the door, and he will wake up. So they outside the door have a fire alarm, and she saw the possibly push the fire alarm wake him up. So she did, and she pushed the whole hotel running out, and there was four. I was right in the bus toward the, hotel, and the traffic, San Francisco Market Street, the traffic was all jump up, and the fire engine was running. I was so worried. I said that they both stay in the hotel, and the hotel have fire. So I ran up to see them. They might find out Grace. And I don't know how she can, get rid of that. I saw that, they are going to find her a lot of money. But end up nothing. They even said, come down. So that is a big episode. Thank you, and I wish, rest in peace, and we miss her really, really very much. Thank you, everybody.
I don't know if anybody else would like to speak or share a memory. Absolutely no pressure. Or would anybody like to? Fred is my mom's oldest brother's fourth son. Yeah, the youngest son. My father and my oldest brother are participating by video, I think, but we're trying to capture it also for them. My oldest brother had intentions to make it here in person, but he is unfortunately coming from the East Coast and ran into some travel delays that made it impossible to get here in time. So he's joined by video. As one of my, it's funny, we have kids now, and of course they think their parents are kind of idiots, but they love their aunts. And I remember that stage when I look back as, I had such a cool aunt. Aunt Grace, and it was always great to see her, even though we didn't see her as often as we would have liked because we weren't super close, Iowa and Florida, and then Orange County in Florida, and yet we still were able to have such a wonderful time to hear these stories. And she was the aunt who was willing to try anything and wanted to go on adventures, and I remember she was so welcoming. I went on this thing called the Love Boat in Taiwan. I was supposed to find a future bride, and I said, after about 3 days, I said, this is nonsense. We're going to spend time with some family, come back to the United States a little early. What the heck am I going to do with myself? So maybe I'll go hang out in California. And Aunt Grace and Uncle Gene immediately said, sure, come. So what do you know, I found myself working in a photo shop a little. Working in the florist, helping. I was like, what, there's a wedding? What time? I'm like, you're going to have all this done in time? And she did. She pulled it off. Obviously, Uncle Gene was diligently contributing to that. Probably Evie was as well. It was hard for me to, Francis was in school. It was hard for me to imagine through all that in the end she was a nurse. And yet here she was in California,
effectively managing several florists and a photo shop, and talk about a person with unlimited talent and abilities, and it was just amazing. Also, I forgot earlier, Francis, you're not the only one named after a geographic location. I was too. So, Fredericksburg, West Virginia, was the closest big city. So these are all the great Taiwanese stories. And I too was shocked going back to the Funyuan and thinking, why is there this divot between this house and that house? And then I realized this kind of smelled, and I saw some stuff passing by that was open sewage. And yeah, there are some memories of what it was like for the hardship, much more for Aunt Grace than for my dad. As the oldest, my dad couldn't go to the farms, wasn't allowed, was destined to be a scholar, always got first choice of the meat on the table, and so he was pampered, much like my kids are now. But Aunt Grace lived through hardship that my dad never saw, because he was the male and the eldest. And although obviously he can't change that, he wishes he could be here, I know. He would talk to his sister often. FaceTime was a wonderful invention for those who live far apart from each other. So we're happy to be here. There's no way I would have missed it. Wish that we could all just enjoy each other's company and the grand memories of just honoring a person who was truly remarkable. To think where she came from and to have been destined to have been married off and to put her foot down and said no, and then to come to America by herself and to do the things that she's accomplished is truly something that I hope my kids learn from. It's great.
Susie is Aunt Sue's oldest daughter.
Well, I'm told to speak.
Or just
But
good daughter.
yes, thank you, thank you. I think I want to start off by talking a little bit about what Aunt Grace or Akiem, meant to our family, to Jenny and me, and to our family. We grew up in Illinois, in southern Illinois, as one of the, kind of only Taiwanese families in our little city of 16,000. And because my parents immigrated here, our parents immigrated here, a lot of our relatives, like many of you, were in Taiwan. And so when our grandparents passed, or anyone passed, it was very sad. We still felt very connected with the family, but it was also very distant. Evie and Francis, Jojo and Akim were our closest relatives. We were in Illinois, they were in Iowa. So growing up, I believe they were part of our family, our extended family, and the closest. Auntie Grace was a force, as everyone has described, and I would describe maybe our family somewhat accurately as we were a pretty quiet, private family, and by contrast, Auntie Grace, Akim, was quite the personality. Every time we would go visit in Iowa, it would be this. I just remember my earliest memories of her, one being this incredibly savvy person who was, I guess during the summers it makes sense now that she was always going out doing real estate at that time, but she always seemed like a very busy woman. And I know that my mother and Akiem played a huge role in, I think, Jenny and my identities as working women, professionals who had our own careers and were very independent. Akiem was always forthright with her personality, with her opinions about things, and so I remember it being a very stark contrast to our family. And I was always bracing for, oh my God, what is she going to say next? And it was so welcome, though. I think when I reflect back now as a woman in my 50s, I think of Akiem as somebody who really was a model for our outspokenness and our fearlessness and courage. I think I will always remember, I know there are tons of stories, but one of my earliest memories was the story of the Dr. Pepper story. both my mom and Akim, I think, working in the hospital together. And Akim told this really funny story when we were kids where a patient asked for a Dr. Pepper, and she, being a fairly new to the United States, thought it was a real doctor. She went on the pager in the paging system in the hospital and said, calling Dr. Pepper, calling Dr. Pepper. And I just remember when Akim told that story, I just started laughing. I was just like, this is a grown-up who is like, who was like just telling the story, just unbrazen, just like totally, I was like, wow. And she doesn't care, and she thinks it's a funny story, and I thought, oh, that's great. So anyway, I just wanted to express both. Again, one strong memory was in high school when Jenny and I were there in California. When we moved from Illinois to California, and Francis and Evie were already here, it was a very stressful and lonely time for me, at least. I don't know about Jenny, but it was definitely for me. And being moved, having lived only in Illinois and moving to California in 1983, I remember driving down, La Paz and going to visit your house, and Akim and Jojo, Francis and Evie, opened up their homes to us, and it became one small but very familiar place that we could go to reconnect with our roots, as we established ourselves in California. Akim was a huge part of that, being in the kitchen, cooking food, welcoming in her big way, making it seem like everything was going to be okay. And it was, but it took a long time. The other strong memory I have too of Akim was coming back, this is random, but coming back from college. And Akim, and we would sit down, we'd be eating, and she'd be talking, asking me questions. I never knew where she was going to go. And one time she made this random remark. She said, "Your mother was always so stylish, and I don't know what happened with you." And at first I was like, "Oh my God!" And then I thought, "Well, she's right though." She's right. After that, I was determined to come up with my own style. But Akim, that was Akim in our lives. She was the person who really just told it like it was, and it was kind of like, yeah, you're right. The last thing I wanted to share, I'm sorry, this is rambly, but the last thing I did want to share was being in high school and just watching how much of an anchor Akim was for Evie and for Francis, and for Jojo too. That was the first thing I remembered when she passed, was remembering just what an anchor she was for you, and she was an anchor for us as well. And I just wanted to say that out loud. So anyway, thank you.
Susie. Greg. Greg's the second son of Mom's oldest brother.
So it's really nice to see everybody here today. Of course, very sad that Grace is no longer with us. But knowing Grace, how wonderful she would have thought today was that all of us could be reconnected. Probably many of us have not seen each other for 10, 20 years or longer. So that's really wonderful. One thing I wanted to mention was that when our family came to the U.S., we really didn't have any relatives here. And then I think you guys came, and we learned that we had relatives. What a wonderful thing, right? To know that we have relatives. And in particular, I remember Uncle Gene always brought the best presents at Christmas. You're always counting on Uncle Gene to deliver. And the other interesting thing was to see my father interact with Aunt Grace. Because, of course, we all have parents, and we see them interact. But to think that they have siblings, right? And to watch them interact, and to see how comfortable they are, and to think about how comfortable you are with your own siblings. It was really quite eye-opening. and something that I will never forget, and I think something hopefully that helped me in my relationships with my siblings, right? Aunt Grace, truly a Renaissance woman, as all of you have mentioned. She had so many talents. She had so much energy. She had Uncle Gene always backing her up, right? Which was wonderful. And whenever I would see Aunt Grace and Uncle Gene, I would think to myself, well, you know, a married couple doesn't have to agree on everything. But you gotta at least agree on a couple things, right? A couple things here and there. Maybe they could find some common ground. And it always kept things very interesting, as I've said. One of my fondest memories is of December, when Aunt Grace was quite ill. And in fact, you know, I was hearing that Aunt Grace could die any day. And I felt so heavy-hearted, and I thought, well, I got to go visit my Aunt Grace because she could die any day. So I worked out the plan to come down, and Francis picked me up, and he was like, Greg, my mom's really ill. Now, don't expect much. She's very ill. She could die any day. I get to the house, and Grace practically jumps up, and she says, let's go out to eat. I said, what? Aunt Grace, you're dying. What are you talking about? She says, oh, let's go out to eat. I said, no, we're not going to go out to eat. Well, then, I think she went to the kitchen and kicked Uncle Gene out of the kitchen and said, well, then I'm going to cook. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, Francis, what is going on? Are you sure you got an MD degree? This woman is doing great. But you know, that was Aunt Grace. She had a lot of energy. She loved people. At the end of all that, we wound up being able to sit down. I was an honorary member of the Shih family that evening and just got to have a simple dinner with my relatives and talk, chat, and it was so wonderful. And, I'll always cherish that. So, yes, we all miss Aunt Grace. It's very sad, but at the same time, she really lived an exceptional life. And we really should celebrate how exceptional her life was.
Thanks, Greg. Any other? Sunny.
I have to represent my father.
Sunny is representing. Maybe your father is. So
Yeah.
number 3 in the family.
Among the
sibling,
6.
Among the 6, the brother after her.
I'm Sunny. I want to follow up some of my cousin mentioned certain things of Aunt Grace. I think first of all about how Aunt Grace taking people into the family. I think a few of my cousins here, like us, like me, we immigrant, we came to this country to study. After we become adults, we didn't grow up here. She's the family. She's the point of family we come here. We all coming through California. We all coming through her house. Whatever happened, we know we have a family in California. And as you know, Fred, your experience, you know, when you try to exploring yourself, he took you in. My younger brother, after he graduated from master, he is unemployed, no girlfriend, nothing in his life. And Grace and Uncle Jim took him in for a really long time. And I remember he told me that Aunt Grace will check him on it. Just don't stay in the computer all every day. Go out, look for a job. Go out, do something. But it just, I just thinking about that. You know, you guys went through the periods of time of your life that he took in stranger into, you know, and he also opened that to any family who are exploring themselves. My most experience of him of her actually is in Taiwan. my mother considered me a lost cause when I was growing up. Every time Aunt Grace was in Taiwan, she has a mission to talk to me, to see your mom say you have to go back to, go to school, studying, get on track. But don't listen to her. Just do whatever you want. Behind my mom's back. It's okay. Just do what you need to do. Okay. And then when I came to this country, I remember an experience, and I think besides all of that, as a woman, how she grew up, we all know that. My grandfather, her father, told me once when I was growing up, say raising a pig is more profitable than raising a daughter. Right in my face, because they were talking about how expensive it is for us to take piano lessons. So when she was sharing her experience growing up, I identify with that. And then that's the thing is, she told me just do whatever you want to do, but you really, this works. But until once, I remember the first time I went to Disney when I came to this country, she took me there, and I think we ordered food, and they gave us wrong food. And I think as a woman, also with language barrier, you took it. Whatever people give it to you, take it. She went there. No. Let's go talk to the manager. She went to the counter and argued, and told me, you have to argue. From that point on, I learned that I have to argue. She said that you have to argue. It's your right. You have to argue. So I remember when I met my husband thinks my language is very rude. Because I always tell people. Because she told me you have to argue. No matter what kind of, no matter how bad your English is, you have to argue. And I learned that. And I think she stood tall for that. And I'm going to keep standing tall for that. And I'm going to keep being direct for that. Because that's the lesson I learned. And I thank her. And I thank you. You're right, it's the anchor for us, immigrant here. And after we become adult, we don't really have family here. That's really everything here. So, thank you.
Judy's the daughter of Sanku, right?
Yeah, I'm the third son of that big family and the first daughter here. I didn't prepare a speech, but I think I should say something. Aunt Grace, I remember when we were kids, every time you guys came back to Taiwan, that was the best time of our lives. All the Hershey's chocolate, hand-me-down Lego, I don't know if it's a hand-me-down or it's a new Lego, I don't know. But anyway, there are a lot of Legos. But Aunt Grace, I have a lot of aunts, a lot. She was very different. She's so different than anybody else. She's open-minded. She's so bright. She talks so loud. She can say anything, and she's like the guide to all the girls in the Huang family. Because we have so many girls, and we have all the boys are in the United States, and then our grandfather, you all know what happens when it's like, okay, the boys take pictures here, the girls later, in every time the gathering. So for the girls in our family, Aunt Grace was the one that we really look at. She was the idol, she was the guide, and then she encouraged us to get out of our comfort zone and just do whatever we want. Like Sunny said, although I didn't have her story, I was lucky. I had two sisters, so we were equally fine in the family. But I remember every time when the big family gathers, that's a huge difference when you feel that you are a girl, not a boy. So, Aunt Grace, we miss you.
Anybody else?
Anyway, yeah.
Robert, all the long brothers.
The last one, okay? So, yeah, I'm
None of the last one.
Robert, and the third son of the uncle. And so I've been in California for a few years. Actually, Susie and Jenny we met a long time ago at Stanford. Good to see you again. Good to see everybody again. So when I first moved to California, I was like the first in my family to make it to California. I had to go see what California was like. And Uncle Gene and Aunt Grace were here, and I decided to take a trip to visit them. And I actually invited a couple of my friends to join me. And I asked them, is it okay if I bring a couple of friends down and stay with you? They said, yeah, sure, no problem. Just reflective of their nature, right? Welcoming nature. So it was really nice. And as I'm driving down in the mischievous spirit kind of that she has, I thought to my friends, well, you know, we're going to visit my aunt, and she owns a flower shop. What should we bring her? And they're like, oh, we have an idea. Let's the two of us will go into the store and go stay in the car, and we'll pretend like we're going to go visit a friend, and we don't know what to get them, and we'll ask her what would be a nice gift. So they did all that, and they, you know, and she said, oh, you should get this kind of arrangement, right? And then they made it, and then after a few minutes, finally, I walked in, and they're like, she just had this big beaming smile because she knew that they were my friends. So anyway, that was kind of a fun story. I just wanted to share that a little bit, but also again, you know, her spirit of helping. She welcomed me that time with my friends. She had no idea who they were. But welcome into the house, and the whole discussion about food and family, you know, families first. First welcome into the house, had a meal at the house. And then recently I've joined a company that's based here, the headquarters in Southern California, in Irvine. And I come down every 2-3 weeks or so and have had a chance to come and visit over the past 2 years with the family. And again, you know, Uncle Gene and Grace, friends. I come by to the house, and sure enough, Aunt Grace is in the kitchen, you know, making a full meal, and you know, I'll get to sit down and visit and enjoy good times. And it's really been great to kind of reconnect after all these years. And the other thing I'll mention is, you know, the last time I think I visited was in February. Okay? And even then, like, I'm hearing kind of similar to what Greg was saying, that, oh, she's really sick. She doesn't have a lot of ability to walk and breathe, she's having a hard time breathing. But, you know, I came in and she sat up, right? And we were able to chat for a whole hour, and then we have dinner. And the thing I'll really remember is the last time I saw her was just how much love she had for you. It was amazing. She had all that strength, and it was coming from you as well. You were cooking and taking care of the house and cooking her every day. So in spite of all those differences, right, that Greg was mentioning, maybe all that conflict at times, but at the end of the day, you know, you guys had an incredible bond. You backed her up, and she backed you up. You raised two great kids. Really a tribute to both of you, and hearing the stories about her and how she made her way to the U.S. from Francis, and how difficult it was for women in Taiwan at that time. Just again, is a tribute to her and you and all that you guys have done. So it's really great. Thank you. Grace, so many great memories, and thank you. You've helped my family personally. Chris, my wife, is here, and I'll just tell a couple more stories about how she's always wanting to help and finds a way to help. Right? So to your point, she gets stuff done. At the end of the day, she finds a way. When Chris and I got married, I was still in school. Chris just finished school, so we didn't have a lot of money. But we decided we were going to have a wedding on our own and pay for it ourselves. And Aunt Grace and Emmy said, "Don't worry about the flowers. We got that all taken care of." And sure enough, they came up that weekend of our wedding. I think it was the morning before, and managed to arrange everything. I wasn't sure at times whether it was all going to get done, but at the end of the day, it was beautiful, and I want to thank you for that as well. And then one more story similar to that is, so our daughter Sophie, she actually got a summer job down here in Irvine. That was about 5 years ago, I think now. Not quite, 3 years ago, I'll say 3 years ago. Anyway, so we were looking for a place for her to stay, and then we found out about this Irvine group, and that here in Irvine, that realtor group, basically, you can't rent for less than 3 months. Absolute minimum of 6 months. And we didn't know what to do because she was only going to be here for 3 months. So we turned to Aunt Grace and said, "Hey, is there anything you can think of?" And said, "Oh yeah, don't worry." And sure enough, within the next day, she with her contact, she said, "Oh, I have a friend, and his house is not being used. We'll get you taken care of. Just don't worry about. Oh, what can we? What are we? Don't worry about any of that, right?" And sure enough, we brought Sophie down, and the place was all set. Everything was set and arranged. So just always willing to help out people. We're relatives, obviously, but with Francis, even folks that maybe don't know too well, he's always there and wanting to help. So we'll miss you, Aunt Grace, for sure. So many great qualities, and we'll never forget. So, thank you.
No, you don't have to. I thought you were asking to. Okay. This is my cousin. She's the daughter of my mom's older sister.
I just want to say that last night when I walked through the door, I didn't feel much because I was tired last night. But I woke up 2:30 in the morning. I started crying because I miss her. Because I remember every time when I opened the door, she was there in the kitchen and cooking everything. I just was so good. I didn't see what I saw was a picture. And so I called my husband 2:30 in the morning. It's 6 o'clock in New York. And she picked up and I started crying, and he said that, "What happened?" I said, "I just missed her because she's not there." And she said, "Yes, I understand. We're talking." And I keep saying how much I miss her because it started hitting me that so hard that she's not here. I just said, "I miss her so much," because it's all good memories. Just was when you said that she taught us how to fight, how to be direct. So you know your rights. You have to fight for your rights. And that's the lesson I learned. You know how to express yourself, be brave, be strong, and learn so much from her. And so many times I need a life lessons. And calling her is like calling my mom because I need her strength. She taught me so much about how to be a strong girl, fighting in this country because you're alone. So I thank her. I miss her so much.
All right. Anybody else? Oh, Jenny. The daughter.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So, in that mold of multiple siblings speaking, we had voluntold my sister to speak for our family. So, when Francis and Evie and Jojo, when you guys were talking about the fact that there were going to be 6 people, originally, and then it came to 30 people, that was no surprise to me because that's exactly the kind of person Akim was. She did just bring in a lot of people and was always open to inviting everybody over. And her spirit is so much here because a lot of the stories are very similar, all the way to just what Susie was saying, all this time we had over at your house over the summers. Also, age inappropriate films I was shown when I was very young.
Another
yes,
victim of that.
It was always
thank
exciting
you
in
for
the
the
summer.
reminder.
Yeah, we went over to their house. I was like, I don't know what we're going to see, but it's going to be fun. And there was always a lot of laughter and everything like that. So Akiem's voice, right? I can just hear her laughing all the time. What Susie said is so true about the energy, right? A lot of energy in your guys' family. So, and just a lot of fun, and obviously because we were all together. I mean, we were lucky to have you all be part of our lives so much. Again, being the only relatives that were closest to us, I think, in all our time. So I just wanted to say that yes, I can definitely feel her spirit here, and her spirit is absolutely living on in your guys' family, and it's just wonderful to kind of be together to celebrate her life together.
Probably gone a little over. Any other last thoughts, words? Okay, so let's call. Josh, you can say something? Oh my gosh. Surprised by my son.
I didn't prepare a speech, but I like to speak for my older sister. Miss her. Every week, not every week, every month growing up, we would go to Grandma Grace's, not Uncle, sorry, Grandpa Jean's house.
You speak Chinese, right? Show off your
Yeah.
Chinese.
99 Agong's house, and we would have dinner about every month, and occasionally every few holidays we would get home holidays like definitely
What did I say?
Are you wondering how much we were getting? My sister.
How much did you get?
Yeah, how much did you get? I'm gonna ask my sister that. But I think one thing I've learned from my grandma is that she had a lot of peace, a lot of compassion for people. I think that really showed through my dad. His personality as well, but that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. All right, I'm gonna wrap up unless anybody has any other last thoughts. Thank you. This was not really scripted, and certainly I agree with Jenny. It was nice to recapture my spirit here. Hopefully she enjoyed what she heard today. So if you haven't got the text from me